I took your advice on that one. So you just listened to it. What are your thoughts?
So earlier on, you were referencing the I don't know what the name of the disorder is, but where they can't feel pain.
There's different disorders like Hansen's disease, leprosy, diabetes can do it. You can be born with it also. I think it's called congenital insensitivity to pain. There's various disorders.
That doesn't seem very related because things can be painful but not be evil, as you even stated.
Right.
So the question isn't whether or not God prevents all pain, but the question is whether or not God can prevent all evil. Like, me stubbing my toe on my bed is not evil.
Right.
It just puts me in a little bit of pain.
I agree.
In a world where God prevents all evil, people would still stub their toe.
Okay, yeah.
People would also still probably get diseases and possibly natural pain, evil, quote unquote, would still happen depending on your view of it.
So I guess it's a matter of definition. I was just using Hank's definition of basically, he said anything from, stubbing your toe to like the worst tragedies you can imagine. So like he defines pain as anything bad, essentially pain, any type of pain, physical or emotional. So I just kind of ran with his definition.
I would disagree with that because as much as I like and respect Hank, I think evil needs an actor.
Like something needs to be like intentionally malevolent for it to be categorized as evil.
Somebody needs to be doing something to somebody else or to something else for it to be evil. Me stubbing my toe is not me doing something to the bed.
The bed's not doing that to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it just happened. Okay.
Right.
Do you feel like that is a typical definition of evil for a skeptic, or do you think Hank's definition is more typical?
I don't know how other people would think about it, but it just doesn't make sense to call inanimate pain evil.
Stubbing your toe.
Like, if a rock falls on somebody's head, that's not evil, that's unfortunate.
Okay. I don't think that's what Hank was intending to say. Like, why doesn't God prevent us from stubbing our toes? It was kind of just trying to lay a groundwork of common ground that, yes, sometimes pain is bad. So just because there's some pain doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who could prevent it was malevolent. There could be a good reason to allow it. Is that fair enough?
Yes.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean he couldn't remove evil, right?
I guess we have to have the same definition of evil. In the video, I'm using the working definition that I've seen many skeptics take, which is essentially, pain and suffering. More specifically, extreme pain and suffering, or pointless pain and suffering, whether it's from somebody or from something, like a drought or a hurricane or a tornado.
Or like a cancer or a robber or a murderer.
Right. So I would agree with you that evil, like moral evil, does sort of require an agent with malicious intent. I was trying to be accommodating to the skeptic who would not necessarily agree with my definition of moral evil. I was trying to cast a broader net.
I think I would say that the thing that most people call natural evil, diseases and natural disasters like hurricanes, earthquakes, etc., those, I think, in this example, if they aren't prevented, could be attributed to God.
Sure, at the very least, God allows it if he has the power to stop
Which
it.
would make it evil, in at least my definition of how I think of evil. Because God would be the personal cause.
So let's go to my examples then. What if people are guilty? Is that a morally justifiable reason for them to...
In a world where all evil is prevented, there would be nothing for people to be guilty of, I think. Because they wouldn't... When people are guilty, it's often that they're guilty of doing something, quote-unquote, evil. Mm-hmm. So if evil is prevented, they wouldn't have done that thing, so they would not have been found guilty.
I think we're talking about two different questions. What we are talking about is the world that does exist, not the world that we would prefer to exist. We're trying to explain our current world. In our current world, people do bad things like murder and rape and stuff. So should those people be allowed or permitted to be detained and suffer in such a way, or should they not?
Right.
Okay. So what about allowing people who are innocent to sometimes suffer? If it prevents greater future pain or pain for others, like the example with giving a baby a shot, is that permissible? In other words, if I take my son to the doctor and give him a shot, am I malevolent or am I just a good parent?
The problem is, why do you have to give him a shot?
Well, that's the problem of natural evil. We'll get to in a second. That's the more challenging problem, granted. But the question at hand is, if I take my son to the doctor and give him, a flu vaccine, am I a good parent or am I a malevolent parent because of that?
Well, I think it's obvious what the answer to that is, but...
Well, tell us for those who it's not obvious to.
No, you should. No, I don't want to. I'm going to get anti-vaxxers banging on my doorstep. I don't want to. You can't make me.
Okay, let's move on. So Hank brings up a really good point. This one kind of made me think. All of it really did. Towards the end of his video, he says, basically, why does pain have to hurt so much? Why couldn't, this omnipotent God...
Omni asterisk.
Sure. Why couldn't this God who is all-powerful, perhaps allow some pain, but like a very, very low level of pain? So my response was...
Brand's research.
Basically, that does nothing. If you can't really feel it, it doesn't protect you.
I would say that most pain is probably like that. Like,
okay,
I don't think that's a valid argument, because regardless of how high or low the level of pain is, you can still just keep doing the thing if your tolerance is, or not even if your tolerance is high enough, it still hurts if you want to do that thing bad enough.
Well, let me give you some examples from this book. This is Philip Yancey's book, Where's God When It Hurts? He gives the example of a basketball player, I think his name was like Bob Gross or something like that, back in the day.
Broke his foot, kept playing.
Did you hear about that? Yeah. So he injured his foot, and they gave him a bunch of shots in his foot so he can keep playing basketball, and he ended up coming down, landing on the ground and snapped his ankle, and he kept running.
Because he didn't feel it.
He didn't feel the pain, so basically that ended his basketball career. So something that if he didn't have these pain-deadening things in shots, he would have been able to rest and heal and continue playing basketball. But because the pain was removed, they flipped the machine off.
It's the pain-deadening. It's not the anesthetic that was at fault there, I don't think. I think it's more the lack of common sense by the player and the doctors. I think it was like in the middle of the game that he did something to his foot, and then they just gave him a shot and said, yeah, keep playing. Right?
Or they thought it was a sprain, and the thinking back then was, explanation. We don't need to get into the details.
Right.
There all sorts of fallout happened from that. But there's those kinds of examples, like even the fact that, the fact that we blink, because, if we hold our eyes open for a certain period of time, then our eyes start to hurt. And if we didn't have that sensation, we may forget to blink. Or, the pressure we feel that when we need to use the restroom, we might poop our pants. So, these very low levels of pain, those are some of the examples. So the point is, pain protects us. And if it wasn't painful, then it wouldn't protect us. Is that fair enough?
No.
Okay.
It works. Pain protects us.
Okay.
Yes.
So yes, pain does protect us.
But that's not an argument for keeping pain. It's more like
why should there have to be? Why should we need protection to begin with? Is maybe the question.
That, but also the system by which we are protected. We could all just be robots, which is a stretch. But say we're all robots, and instead of pain, we just have a HUD. And it just says, you need to poop.
The poop HUD.
You would know you need to poop, right? You would be protected from pooping your robot pants, and you would go poop. And no pain would be involved.
Why not just eliminate the need for pooping?
Or that. That was the first thing.
So basically, the illustration that's given is that's exactly what Dr. Brand tried to do. There were these audible buzzers. Hey, watch out, you're doing something dangerous.
But they would just turn them off.
Well, they wouldn't need to turn it off if it didn't hurt. They would just ignore it.
Right.
They would just go ahead and do the thing anyway. Somebody would reach into a fire to grab something, and they didn't feel pain, so why not?
Right.
If there was just some sort of HUD, then we could ignore it. But if it's something that's unignorable, then it serves a purpose of protecting us. Hank is saying it shouldn't be so painful. And then my conclusion off of that is then it would be ignorable and it wouldn't do the thing that it was supposed to do.
I think what Dr. Brand said in his third point, where the legitimate thing that you can say against pain is that you can't turn it off.
Yes.
In the case of like cancers and causing more and more and more pain.
Right. Like there's nothing you could do about it. Like if you break your arm, like you can like rest your arm in a sling, but like if you have bone cancer, there's only so much you can do, but the pain doesn't stop. That is a legitimate objection, I think. That's addressed next. Do you want to just move on to like natural evil? Okay.
Yeah, probably.
Let's move on. I think at some level maybe we agree that pain protects us, but maybe there's a question.
I think Hank would also probably agree that pain protects us.
Oh, certainly. So that is the common ground, but his thought is like, well, why does it have to hurt so much?
Well, I think in a world where where evil doesn't exist. That would make it so that pain wouldn't exist. Like, in a world where my view of evil doesn't exist, then Hank's view of evil would not exist as well. Because when there's no personal cause for evil, there's considerably less pain. Because there's nobody's murdering anybody, nobody's shooting anybody, nobody's punching anybody. People are still stubbing their toes, but that's not evil, I don't think.
So what about hurricanes and natural things, and like why does there need to be pain to begin with? Like, sure, pain helps us, or maybe pain helps us. I don't know if that's granted. Why does there need to be pain, or why does there need to be this to begin with? What do you think about the point of understanding that the purpose of living here on Earth is not to be perfectly comfortable and happy and live here forever?
I think that's unfair.
Okay. Because
to the atheist, that's all we really have, is living as comfortably and well off as we can. As the atheist, we don't have a sight of, oh well, if I do good, I'll go to some place where it's even better. We're here, and if it sucks, it sucks.
Right. It's unredeemable.
Right.
Or irredeemable. Right. So the argument, though, is the atheist is looking at the Christian worldview and saying, if this Christian God exists and evil exists, then there must be some contradiction. So what we're trying to do is explain, well, no, not necessarily, because maybe we're misunderstanding God's purpose for the earth. So the atheist's underlying assumption is that God's purpose for the earth is to be pain-free and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or maybe less pain. But God's purpose for the earth, if that's not his purpose, just like the city planner and the manager, the purpose isn't comfort. The purpose is something completely different. And if we misunderstand the purpose, then we can attribute the wrong motives.
Right. So I would say that God's purpose, at least in my limited understanding, granted, of Christianity, God's purpose isn't exactly to keep us in some lukewarm, mediocre planet until he figures out whether or not we're good or bad.
Okay.
His purpose is more just for as many people to get to heaven as possible, right?
I think that's the ultimate end goal, but the means by which he gets us there is, the here and now.
And lukewarm mediocrity.
Well, not necessarily lukewarm. There's wonderful, beautiful things in the world.
But there's also
terrible things. So the goal isn't, for right now, the goal isn't for us to be as comfortable as we can right now. If you can make things great for people,
I think,
wonderful. But
say the city planner made some luxurious couches instead of uncomfortable benches. But every 5 minutes, some patrol came by each of the luxurious couches and kicked people off of them.
Okay.
And the city planner has the budget to do that.
Okay.
He could have done that.
He could have. That would have served much the same goal.
But people would have been more comfortable.
So what's the parallel then? Is it this is how I understand what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is it that, this life is just, absolutely perfect?
Not perfect, but
yeah, that's
not...
just, let's say, is the parallel, this life is, pain-free and evil-free, but every, say, 5 minutes or 5 years or whatever, something terrible happens to remove us from all that comfort. Is that the parallel? Because I don't know if that would be an improvement. I mean, for like 5 minutes, 5 years, things are great.
It being pain-free and evil-free is not exactly the goal.
Okay.
Regardless of how you spin it, God wouldn't make it pain or evil-free, because then you just bring up, free will. You'd be able to do evil acts if you want to do evil acts.
That's a whole other can of worms that I didn't even touch on. That's the typical first response, but I wanted to present a few other responses.
Right.
But to go back to your example, that patrol officer who comes and kicks people off the awesome park bench that's luxurious, would that be like World War III every so often, or to kind of reset things? Is that an improvement?
Well, it wasn't meant to be a perfect parallel, obviously, but
you can only take it so far. That's what I'm asking.
It's more that if God is omni everything, then that means he has the resources, he has the time, he has the knowledge, he has the power to do whatever he wants, as long as he accommodates free will, which means he could just give us a different method by which we realize we are quote-unquote in pain, or a different environment that prevents people from doing evil, not through restricting their free will, but through just making it so that that's what they would just choose through their free will.
What would that method be?
I don't know, but he would know. He's omniscient.
What if there isn't? I mean, that it's interesting to speculate. What if there isn't? So the assumption is that there simply is some other way. But what if there isn't? Doesn't the argument just fail? Isn't that just like an assumption?
Well, there would have to be some kind of actual contradiction in people existing and evil not existing, which, depending on your definition of evil, I guess is probable.
Okay. But what about the point of the manager? He has the budget. Say he has the budget for office chairs. They even have office chairs on hand. They can sit. He has the budget for water bottles and donuts and all this sort of stuff. Why wouldn't he choose to make the meeting more comfortable? Does that argument make sense?
Yeah, like
you wouldn't call him a bad boss.
I mean, you might call him a bad boss,
but you couldn't accuse him of malevolence because of that. You could accuse him of maybe focusing on productivity rather than the needs of his employees.
Well, but would that boss then... I mean, I don't know that boss, but would he then, after the meeting is over, say, you don't get to have any chairs at your office anymore? So in all of your cubicles, you all have to stand up. You now have standing desks, and you have to stand for 9 hours a day.
Yeah, that'd be rough. I don't know that would aid in their productivity. So a chair, while you're sitting at your desk, presumably doing your work, is an aid to productivity, because I can only stand for maybe an hour or two before I have to quit. But a chair in a meeting is not necessarily an aid to productivity so much as a hindrance to productivity. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, but
it's like if we have comfy chairs,
to parallel it, like it's not like every month or so we all walk into one specific room and then we feel pain. Rather, it's all the time. At any point, something might happen, and then pain or evil is inflicted on us.
No, right, yeah. So it's not a matter of timing so much as the purpose of the meeting is to be here temporarily and then move on so we can get back to work. The meeting isn't the point, right? The meeting is just an aid to help us get back to work, to do our job well.
Right.
Likewise, the purpose of this earth is not for us to be here forever and et cetera, et cetera. The purpose of the earth is just a very temporary stop-off point and looking toward the ultimate goal.
What is, just so that I get it right, what would you say is the purpose for us being on Earth? I think I know, but I want you to word it.
To make it to heaven. And then that the question is, well, how do you make it to heaven? Well, by being a good person. how are you a good person, etc., etc. But the purpose of this earth is not the earth. The purpose of this earth is just like a bench at a bus stop. You're there for just a short time on your way home. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
So effectively, it's like a place to act, and then when you're done being in that place, to be judged, more or less. Not exactly judged.
I think that's pretty close. This is a place where we determine what kind of people we're going to be. We develop the character that we have, and then we are rewarded appropriately after that. There's a final accounting that takes place.
Okay. Why do we need evil to become the people that we are, for better or worse?
Why do we need evil to develop the character that presumably God wants us to have?
Yes.
I don't know that we need evil for that, but very often we do choose it. Again, talking about free will, that's a whole can of worms. That's a small part of the answer. Another part of it is, again, if there are no pain in the world, then we would lose focus on the purpose of the world. So at the very least, it focuses us on the goal.
I think
is that fair enough?
I think pain doesn't focus. Every time I stub my toe, I don't think about...
What are you thinking about immediately when you stub your toe?
Ow.
That toe?
Yeah.
Right. You're not thinking about your pinky or your shoulder or your glasses.
Yeah, but I'm also not thinking about heaven or hell or
sure.
the consequences of my actions. But I am thinking about the consequences of my actions in that toe.
There you go.
But
that's the point.
I'm not thinking about the overall scope of the consequences of my actions.
Oh, certainly.
That's not something that I get from pain. That's...
Certainly. But in that illustration, when you stub your toe, you might, regret stubbing your toe. I don't want to do that again. Maybe I'll move this stupid chair so I don't stub my toe again. Maybe I'll wear shoes around the house. You think of solutions to prevent this thing from happening again. If every time you stub your toe instead of pain, you got a check for $100, you'd stub your toe a lot more often, potentially. And if presumably stubbing your toe was not a goal you wanted, then, it would be a perverse incentive.
But
is that fair enough?
Yes.
Okay.
But things like stubbing your toe are inconsequential.
In the grand scheme of things, yeah.
For the most part. But when you take it even bigger, like robbing a bank, if you get caught robbing a bank, you're going to be very upset at yourself for robbing that specific bank, or robbing a bank in general. But that doesn't remind anybody.
Let me ask you this. If there were no consequences for robbing banks, do you think there would be more or fewer bank robberies?
Probably more.
Okay.
Probably more that we hear about, at least.
Right. So the threat of pain can act as a deterrent, not only for other people, but for yourself. There's actually a bank robber who did get caught. He's like on YouTube and stuff now, and he turned his whole life around, partly because of getting caught. And I think he says, I'm so thankful that I got caught.
A deterrent to doing bad things.
Right.
Right?
So
that's what
in that case,
pain is.
Right. So in that case, pain prevented further evil.
So I think injustice is a big part of evil. Like the robber, the bank robber, or even the 7-Eleven robber. They aren't robbing, at least as the movies portray it.
Usually not millionaires robbing.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not a millionaire robbing a bank. It's a down on his luck guy who needs an out. So he's robbing the bank to get money. But if this is a slippery slope, but this is theoretical.
Watch out.
100%. If all of us had as much food, water, toilet paper, etc. as we wanted, there would be no cause for that guy to rob that bank. There would be no cause for some guy to steal somebody's car because they would just have the same car.
Are you sure?
But besides people that do evil just for the sake of doing evil, yes.
So yes, having no needs would prevent people from, doing things because they have needs, yes?
Doing stupid things because they have needs.
Sure. But likewise, having needs, like there could be a poor person who, instead of robbing a 7-Eleven or a bank, just like gets a job and develops good character, right?
Right.
So,
but is that a
contributing factor? Yes, but ultimately, it's up to us what decisions we make. Like there have been wealthy people who swindle people. So I don't know that that's an answer.
Is the person who is poor and gets a job, is the character that they gain from getting that job worth enough to keep evil in the world when they could possibly gain that character in a world where there was no evil?
Well, the assumption is that they could gain the character and be the kind of person that they ought to be freely without the opportunity to choose bad. I think that's a pretty big assumption. How can you have free will if you don't have the option of choosing something good or bad?
Well, you do.
How?
You have the option. There's just no rational reason to choose bad. Like, people would still choose bad because people are irrational, but it would do a huge step toward removing evil to just remove that.
Okay. I think maybe we're getting a little bit off track. I mean, that is interesting to think about. Let's kind of wrap this up. Do you think it's a good argument to use for a skeptic or an atheist to say that God can't be good, God has to be malevolent if there's any amount of evil? Like the most extreme version of the argument. Again, that's not what these people are arguing. If there's any amount of pain ever, the only explanation is that God is malevolent. Is that at least common ground? We think that's kind of a silly argument.
If there's any amount of pain
like
ever,
any amount
God
of
has
pain,
to be malevolent.
Like if I just stub my toe.
I don't think that's irrational of the skeptic, because there is a way to arrive at that rationally, I think. Because if God is omni-blank, then...
I thought that'd be an easy yes, man.
Well, think about the skeptic that doesn't really know that much about Christianity.
Right, but we're looking at it from we're looking at the Christian worldview from the outside, presumably.
Yeah.
If God is good and there's any amount of bad, well, that is a necessary contradiction. There's no way to explain any.
I think it's wrong.
Okay,
but I don't think it's irrational. I think
okay.
The person who says that probably doesn't really know the answer that the common Christian is going to give them.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a contradiction. So some pain or some evil is permissible by an omnibenevolent and omniscient and omnipresent God. Some amount of evil is maybe not necessary. I don't know if the skeptic would grant that, but some amount of pain is at least reasonable. It doesn't automatically make him malevolent.
Yes,
is that fair enough?
But only in application to the Christian God.
Sure, that's what we're
talking about. Because if we say that about gods in general, it's not true.
What do you think of Epicurus's, to go back to the beginning, what do you think about Epicurus's second clause? Is he able but not willing, then he's malevolent. True or false? Like, I would grant that that's a possibility, but is that the only possibility? I thought that...
Well, yeah, I know what I'm going to say, but I'm not sure
Okay.
if God is unable or unwilling. Because it's more that he's unable because he's unwilling. Right?
Well, we're talking about, not will he, but could he? Like,
right.
I don't think
so. He definitely could.
He could if he wanted to.
Won't because reason X, Y, Z.
Right. So is the only reason for any amount of pain existing malevolence, or are there other possible explanations?
There are always other possible explanations with things that aren't like if a square has four sides, it's a square. There's no other real explanation to that. From what I understand of it, which is not much, there are more explanations. That still seems the most likely to me.
Malevolence?
Yeah, but not... I wouldn't say malevolence. I'd just say... Well, maybe. I'd say there...
Would you just say he'd do it... He'd be able to do it a different way? Yeah. Okay. He'd do it a different way. Fair enough. Good place to end.
Yeah.